and happy holidays. On this episode, we're actually going to cover turkey, which my smoked turkey certainly is considered by some, including my wife, as one of my better recipes. So I hope you're grateful that I'm giving away one of my biggest secrets. So in a minute, I will show you the build materials, and we'll get started real quickly because this one is going to take a while. Alright, so we're going to go through our build of materials here. You'll notice I'm staying pretty far away from this turkey because it is freaking huge. Basically, this is a 27-pound turkey. Do you have to get one this big? No. Basically, I'm feeding about 30 people at a party, at a potluck dinner, so this one's a little bit bigger. Usually I get anywhere between 15 and 18-pound turkeys. It'll still work the same. It just all has to do with your cook time. So anyway, if you get one of these from a store, make sure you get the neck, giblets, gravy starter, all those like little kits, all the plastic wiring that holds the legs together, all that stuff pulled out of there. And then you'll notice it's sitting in a drip pan. You'll actually need two of these. You'll basically need one, which it's in here right now, and it's going to brine in this. It'll also serve as a drip pan while it's cooking. And you also want another one to actually serve and keep leftovers. Alright, so now you'll notice down here, we really have everything else we're going to need for this. You'll see we're basically going to do is we're going to do a dry rub. So that's going to include a lot of Cajun spices. You'll see right now we're using Tony Cacheret's Cajun seasoning, as well as some Poultry Magic and Webster's Kickin' Chicken seasoning. What we're going to do with that is we're going to use vegetable spread as well as olive oil, and we're basically going to rub the turkey down with all of those ingredients. You'll see that we also have a Cajun injection behind there. This one's just a store-bought guy. He comes with like a little injection needle. It's just Creole butter. I've used this guy before. He's really good. If you want to do your own, I've done that before as well. I typically take olive oil, chicken broth, vegetable spread, and some of the seasonings I use in the dry rub. And then I'll actually mix all those together, put a little Tabasco in it, and I'll put it in the microwave for about 30 seconds, mix it, and then inject it into the bird. You'll see that we have plenty of chicken broth here. What you're actually going to do with this is you're going to use it in the drip pan while it cooks so that it steams on the vertical stand through the bird continuously for the entire duration of the cook. This really just prevents it from drying out, adds a lot of that poultry flavor to it, and also makes it so that you can kind of set it and forget it while it's cooking without having to worry about basically the bird getting burnt at all. And then lastly, plenty of foil. You're going to need this obviously to wrap the bird when it's done, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But basically when we're done brining this for now, we're going to cover it and put it back in the refrigerator overnight. Also not pictured here, beside the vegetable spread and the olive oil, we're actually going to be smoking this with a lighter wood. We're probably going to use pecan, but really you can use anything like pecan. Maple is also good to add a little bit of sweetness to it. Apples works just the same, so does cherry. I tend to stay away from the darker mesquite and or oak type of woods, which includes the Tabasco wood chips as well as Jack Daniels. So we're going to start prepping this bird in just a minute. Okay, so we're going to start with the injection. So basically you'll see this injection kit came with a syringe. Obviously if you make your own you will need one, but it's real simple. Basically we're going to try to use this entire jar. This is really what is going to help it as it brines overnight, keep that moisture, but as well it'll really give you some super flavorful pockets of meat in there once the bird is actually done. So what we're going to do is you're actually going to take the bird and you're going to apply injection in 6 spots on the top, right here along the breast, and then you're also going to do probably 2 to 3 on each leg, especially on a bird this big. But for each injection point, you're actually going to come in and you're going to do various angles within the same part of the bird without letting go. So what we're going to do is we'll start over here. Basically you just kind of put it in straight, and I usually do probably about 1/3, and you'll see I'll pull it a little bit out and back in a different direction. And you'll see it starts to kind of inflate over there. So then we'll just kind of come in, and it's okay if a little bit spills out, it will. It's just the nature of it. And then basically you're done right there on that part of the bird. So we're going to come back through, and we're actually going to do this again in this next spot up here, probably about this far away. Kind of go straight in. Try to not to go all the way through the bird. And again, apply. You'll see it's starting to raise all the way over here. And then we'll come in at a different angle than the other two. So we'll repeat that. We're going to do obviously 3 and 3 on the top, probably 2 in the legs, and then we're going to flip the bird over, and we're going to do 3 and 3 on the back. Again, hit these legs and hit this shoulder and this wing back here. So I'm going to continue on this front part of the bird. When I'm done with that, I'll flip it over and I'll show you what the back looks like. Alright, so now you're seeing that I flipped the bird over. As far as the actual injection goes, you're going to be about 2/3 of the way done with it, mainly because there's more meat on that part of the bird, the front with the breast and all that. That's actually the good quality meat. Not to say that the back of this bird isn't going to be delicious. It will be, especially if you know about the 2 oysters located in the back right here, and we'll get to that later. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to kind of repeat. It's going to be a little bit different. You're probably going to do an injection point somewhere along in here in this meat, maybe one right there. And then you're really going to come in and hit this area right here pretty hard. So you're really going to do kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 if you got it, and do it on both sides. So let's get started again. You're going to do 3 injection points on each part. Kind of come in here and do it right here to start. So you'll see it's already starting to raise up there. So that's how you know you can hit a good spot where that injection is going to stay. So we got that in. Now we'll hit it with another dose, and we'll come in, we'll sneak it in right here, get some in this wing. The wing's a little bit tougher because you're going to have to find a spot you can get it in, like so. You'll see it's filling up the whole wing. You don't really need to get it on a meaty part, you just need to fill it up in there. There's less meat in there, so you don't really need to go as crazy. And then you can kind of feel free to kind of hit it in its side right there. Give a little bit there, and that'll actually drip through the meat into the breast. And then lastly, we're going to get it up around the shoulder. And we're not going to put too much up here either. Just find a good portion of healthy meat. And again, just add a little bit. Now the back, as I mentioned, is a little bit less meat, so you don't need to do as much on each side. So we're going to go through, we're going to repeat that on the back of the bird, and then we'll be ready to give this a dry rub. Alright, so now we're at the part where we are ready to do our dry rub. You'll notice that there is already some stuff on the top. Yeah, typically when I have leftover injection, I'll just pour it on the bird. Eventually it'll just go into the drip pan. It'll mix with all those flavors that are eventually going to steam back into the meat. And like this particular brand has plenty of spices in it too, which will just add to the flavor. So I digress, but people will usually ask me, what's more important about cooking this turkey. Is it the actual injection that's in it, or is it the actual dry rub? And I will tell you that the key to success on this bird is the actual skin and how you hold in that moisture. Now, for granted, if you want more moisture in your bird, you can always add more injection. You saw I only used 1 bottle for this entire bird. I could use 2. Typically, when I make my own injection, I will tend to use a little bit more than the quantity I just used, but I promise you this will still be good. So basically, to get that crispy skin that's tough enough to actually hold in all that moisture, really the secret is, besides the spices creating a thicker skin, it's really the mixture of vegetable spread and olive oil. It just really seems to make that skin almost potato chip crisp, super firm, real thin. It'll split at some points and juices will start oozing out. So the way we get that started, we just add some vegetable spread. You can use this pretty liberally. Basically, it really just kind of mocks butter. It has a little bit more flavor, and it really holds on to the bird and holds those seasonings on pretty firm. So we're going to start with the back of the bird. You'll see I used plenty of that. And then we're just going to come in with this olive oil and use a liberal amount again on that. So what you're going to get here is really our base for what's going to hold this whole thing together, or our glue. So you'll see I'm using 3 different spices right now. So we're just going to kind of prep all these. And you could use any blend of poultry seasonings. You can make your own seasoning. I will tell you that with the Creole butter, it does get kind of hot, so you may not want to get as spicy as I'm about to get, but like I said, my friends love spicy foods. I love spicy foods, so I like to bring a little bit of heat to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rub all this in. You want to make sure you get pretty much every little crevice in here, especially when we flip the bird over. We're going to want to get actually inside the body as well, because it's equally as important as encasing all that moisture that you give a nice coat on the inside, especially with vertical smoking, just because obviously juice can start to leak out from the inside. So now that's kind of a nice consistent ooziness, we're going to come up with this Creole seasoning, and we're just going to dust a liberal amount on it. This is probably the spicier of the 3 seasonings I chose, so this will really kind of gauge the heat. You can see I'm coughing already from it. Alright, that's probably good enough for a start. And we're going to come here with Poultry Magic. This is a little bit more mild. This is really kind of your good old Thanksgiving blend. Also very similar to kind of a beer can chicken feel, if that's kind of what you're into. So we're going to kind of come in here. You'll see we already got pretty good coverage, and we'll fill in some of those other areas when we flip the bird over. Alright, that's probably good enough for now. And then we're going to come in with Kickin' Chicken. This is one of my favorite spice blends. This is probably almost as hot as the Cajun spice we used earlier, but it just kind of gives an extra added kick to it. So you'll see I'm getting really good coverage on the top now. So you'll just kind of come in, you'll pat it. You don't want to rub, because then it'll start to kind of fall off, but you do want to pat it so that it kind of bonds to that glue that we made. And you'll see I do it just enough till it starts to kind of lift off into my hand, and then you're ready to flip it over. So we'll flip it over and we'll do the other side. Alright, and we're back. So you'll see pretty much got full coverage. You'll see some of the seasoning kind of spraying up to here, so as long as we kind of cover it close enough, I can kind of rub down in there. So we're going to get started again. We're going to get with the parquet vegetable spread again. Once again, just a liberal amount. I mean, this is the area of the bird where most people are going to eat off of. Like I said, some of the best meat is on the back, but it's pretty sparse, so you really want to concentrate on doing a good job on this side. You'll notice that's kind of why I ended on this side up, because I really want the spices to have a chance to really stick to that skin. The back spice will kind of fall off a little bit as the juices kind of fall down on the turkey, but that's okay, because we can always add more right when we put it on. So that's probably enough for now. We'll come back in with some olive oil. So again, a healthy amount. Really can't overdo it. The majority of this is all going to cook off anyway, or fall off the bird. And then it'll just go into our drip pan, which we'll cook back in. Alright, so we got our goo glue all set up. And give it a nice rub down. Remember, you want to get all the crevices, so, and I know this might gross some of you out, but you really got to get inside the bird. You really want to rub all in there. You know, obviously you're not going to have to stick your hand all the way in, but it is good to kind of come in through the neck as well. Kind of rub it all down in there. Alright, so now we're ready to put our spices on again. So we'll start off with our Cajun. Healthy amount of this. It is a Cajun bird. Actually, I probably could open this up even more. Do that. There we go. Alright. Not to make too much of a mess in my house. My wife will get mad at me. Alright. Ooh. A little bit of heat coming off on there. Alright, that's good for now. Again with the Poultry Magic, kind of cut that heat a little bit, give it a nice hearty base. Try to get all angles in there. A lot of this we're going to have to get with our hand too. To do that, you just kind of put a healthy amount and just kind of pat. See how I'm doing that? And that's what we'll be doing on the inside as well. You're not going to get full coverage. That's okay. Like I said, the point of the drip pan and slow smoking is really to hold in any moisture that does escape and cook it back into the bird. Okay, almost have the whole bird covered here. And we'll do some on the top just for good measure. Alright, let's go to our last guy. Whoop. That made a mess. Alright. Also too, another option, you can kind of create a barrier and then just kind of roll your hand up. That'll really give you some good coverage. Alright. You don't want to use all of it. Remember, when we actually put this on the vertical stand tomorrow, when we start cooking it, you're going to have a little bit that you can fill in those pockets that aren't accessible while it's on its back or stomach. And that'll really give you full coverage. Alright, that's pretty darn good. So now that we've injected and brined it, we're pretty much ready to go to wrap this thing up and put it in the fridge. Alright, so that's what the finished guy looks like before we're ready to leave in the fridge overnight. You'll notice we got some decent coverage inside, all around. You're not going to get it all around the sides. You'll see plenty of blank spots there, but as I mentioned, when we put it on the vertical stand, all those spots will be exposed. You'll be able to add to it right before you start smoking the bird. Main point right now is just to get this skin totally salted up so that it can hold in all that moisture when you start it on the egg tomorrow. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our foil, we're going to wrap this thing up, and we're going to put it in the fridge overnight. And we will see you tomorrow. Alright, so as we get the grill fired up, you'll see we've taken the turkey out. And this is actually the method in which we're going to cook it. You'll see I have it on a vertical stand in the drip pan that's been brining in overnight. And what we're actually going to do, once we get it on the grill, we're basically going to have the fire ring removed and the grate directly on the coals. And then we're just going to stand it up like you see. We're going to put maple wood chips, which have been soaking for 30 minutes in the coals to get that nice sweet smoky flavor. And then we're going to take chicken broth and continuously keep this drip pan full of chicken broth so that it can kind of evaporate in through the middle of the bird, through the stand, but as well as the outside on its skin, really just trap in that moisture and keep it super moist. So our goal really is to cook it really super low and slow. We're probably going to do somewhere in the neighborhood of 215 to 230 to start, and then overnight it'll probably get as low as 180. And then we're basically going to use a meat thermometer to alert us when the internal temperature hits 180, and that's when we'll pull this turkey off. So we're going to get started. We're going to throw this bird on, and we'll check back in with you later. Alright, so we're about 3 hours into this cook. You'll see that we're sitting right at 200 degrees, which is about our perfect area for our target. So we're going to give a quick peek, as I like to do, and add some more chicken broth. You'll want to do this from time to time just to make sure that it doesn't dry out as you check on it. So we're going to kind of let it burp a little bit. Alright, so you'll see there it is. It's a good thing we checked on it. We are low on broth. So we're going to go ahead and add that. And you don't want to do too much in case it overflows, but we'll add enough just to make sure it stays moist in there. Probably one thing of broth is probably enough. Alright, that's more than enough. We don't want it to overflow, and you'll see the back is getting kind of high. So what we're also going to do now is we're going to put in our grill alert sensor. And this is really just to measure and tell us when the turkey's done. Just kind of stick it in, pierce it, make sure you stay in the middle of the meat. Then you can just close it around there. So what we'll do is we'll keep this bird on here until it builds up to 180 degrees internal temperature. Alright, so it's the next morning. It's about 7:20, so the turkey, obviously I left it on overnight. As I've been tracking it, it got up to around 165, probably hit 170 overnight. And then what we'll do here is there's a chance it might have hit 180 overnight. Usually it does, but since we're waking up and it's not at 180 yet, what I usually like to do is I like to rebuild another fire, and then I'll add more wood chips for a second round of smoke, and then just build that internal temperature to 180 just to be safe. You obviously don't want to take any risks with birds like this because you can get salmonella. So we'll do that shortly, and then we'll leave it on for a couple more hours just to get that internal temperature back up. Alright, so you'll see that we just got the turkey back on. We have the wood chips going, and we're just going to raise it back up to an internal temperature of 180. You'll see it's at 200 now because I added all the wood chips. It should build back up, though. You'll see there's a healthy plume of smoke. So we'll check back in on this when the temperature gets to 180. Alright, so you'll see we're seeing about 173. It's actually safe to pull off at this point. Typically, they've mentioned 180 as the FDA-approved temperature for turkey, but recently they've recanted on that and said at least 165. So I think at 173 we're probably safe. It's been on now for about 21 hours, so we're going to take a peek at it just to make sure we're ready to pull it. But you'll see we're just over 300, so we're going to let this thing burp a little bit before we open it wide open. And you'll see we got a lot of smoke to it. The bird itself has a nice char. It's starting to split a little bit. It's going to really be more of a pulled pork consistency, so it's going to be super tender and really delicate. So we're going to go ahead and pull this off and wrap it up. Alright, so 21 hours later, this is kind of what you get. You'll notice it actually is so tender it pulled off the bone as I was getting it out of there. So it's not in full turkey mode, so I won't be able to really show you where the oyster is. But if you really want to snag a really good taste of this, what you do is you run your fingers along the back shoulder blades, and you'll feel two indentations where some meat is kind of just hanging out. That will be the moistest part of this bird, but you can see by the way it's glistening how incredibly moist this thing is. I mean, it's almost like a pulled turkey consistency. The breast will still be full form, so you can slice that traditionally, but I guarantee that you'll like the way that this tastes. So we're just going to grab a quick bite here. This piece looks real good. You'll notice there's some smoke ring there, a little bit of red color, super moist, super tender. I'm going to take a bite of it. That's absolutely to die for. Great flavor of charring, perfect amount of marinade, a little sweet and spicy. So we're going to wrap this up and take it to my potluck. Alright, so here's the aftermath of what it looks like after a potluck, but you'll see that the dark meat kind of pulls a little bit like pork. You'll see it's super moist, still super juicy, kind of these little type of shredded pork looking guys. Guarantee those are good. White meat's a little bit different, obviously. Most of it will slice pretty thick, kind of like this guy. You can get a thin slice on the outside part of the breast. And then as you get toward the bottom where it's kind of been sucking in all that juice and it's been breaking down the meat over all that time brining, you'll see that it's kind of shreds like the other half, and it's even, I'd say, just as moist as the dark meat actually. So super good. I hope you enjoy.